The U.S. government has declared that it will provide financial assistance to corporations that build modern semiconductor factories and research facilities, covering 5 to 15% of their construction expenses. Samsung Electronics, for instance, is constructing a semiconductor factory worth 22.3 trillion won in Texas, and it could receive up to 3.4 trillion won in subsidies. The U.S. government has implemented this policy with the aim of luring the top semiconductor companies from around the world to establish themselves in the U.S. While the U.S. is currently a leader in semiconductor design, manufacturing has traditionally been the domain of Korean and Taiwanese companies. However, the global supply chain was disrupted during the COVID-19 pandemic, and the prospect of a potential invasion of Taiwan by China has raised concerns about importing semiconductors from Taiwan in the future. As a result, there is growing sentiment in the U.S. that domestic semiconductor manufacturing is necessary. The U.S. is also aiming to hold China in check. The two countries have been competing for global supremacy. Since semiconductor technology is a key industry of the future, China has been heavily subsidizing its semiconductor field. The U.S. is also trying to reorganize its cutting-edge semiconductor supply chain with itself at the center. Finally, the Biden administration hopes to revitalize the U.S. economy by activating the U.S. economy. It aims to bring factories from countries with relatively low labor costs back to the U.S. However, the rigorous requirements for these subsidies are causing many headaches for Korean companies. First, the U.S. requires companies to release their ledgers with sensitive information like profits. There is also a clause that the companies making more money than expected would have to give parts of it back to the U.S. government. Also, the companies that receive the subsidies cannot invest in China for 10 years onward. This is an official declaration of the U.S. to compete with China. The requirements imposed by the United States government to subsidize the construction of state-of-the-art semiconductor factories and research facilities have caused a conflict for Korean conglomerates like Samsung Electronics and SK, who have already invested heavily in China, including building semiconductor factories. Applying for the U.S. government's subsidies may hamper their future business in China, and it may also be challenging for Korean companies to reveal their corporate information about profits to the U.S. government. People are eagerly awaiting the U.S. government's decision on these concerns after the Korean government communicated them to the U.S. government.